Saichi was a lonely boy who was bullied by everyone in his class for the way he looked. One day, the god of the world made an announcement and granted everyone a power before sending them to a new world. However, Saichi was the only one left without any powers and continued to be made fun of. Once everyone was teleported, God gave him one more special skill, which allowed him to eat a mysterious fruit that transformed him into an attractive man. He wondered how his life had ended up here. After being transported to the new world, Saichi was hungry and had gone for 5 days without food or water until a worm appeared before him. As he desperately tried to reach for it, something hit him in the head, and he finally saw a fruit ahead of him. After analyzing it, the appraisal system defined it as the fruit of evolution. He thought it sounded like a scam, but took a bite anyway, only to throw it up. A voice activated in his head, announcing that the effects of the fruit would now be activated. He sat in shock, worrying that he was about to die, but nothing occurred. Saichi walked around and found monkeys dancing, appraising them to be level 120. They walked away from their base, and he saw all the fruits of evolution they had left behind. He decided to store all of them in his box, along with the best recovery potions in the world. His schoolmates were all gathered without him, but not a single one of them cared about how he was doing. Throughout the week, he continued eating the fruits of evolution until he was down to his last 2. The godlike announcer gave him more power-ups, but the monkeys returned to beat him up for stealing their food. He drank an elixir to recover, but a monkey rushed forward in a flurry of speed and knocked him down. It reached toward his body to eat him, but even the game thought he smelled disgusting and killed the monkey with his body odor. Treasure dropped before him, along with a book that he read, and he heard the announcer telling him that his evolution would now begin. Before he knew it, he had woken up with a skinnier body and remembered his body being dismembered and his bones being broken until his body had transformed. The announcer added 1,000 to all his skills, making him one of the strongest beings while still having 9 out of 10 evolutions left. However, his level was still 1 after killing the monkey, so he decided to run around hunting level 300 monsters to increase his level and evolution with his new super speed abilities and kicks. But no matter how many of them he defeated, his level never increased. He continued collecting treasures and gaining special abilities in the meantime, even acquiring legendary daggers in the process and reading about the history of the wolves. His evolution commenced once more, and after a week of hunting monsters, he was down to 1 evolution left. But before he could recover, monkeys surrounded him once more, and the giant red monkey asked him to fight against it. Saichi asked if he could refuse, but the monkey denied him because he was ugly. The monkey was appraised to be a level 700 monster, and Saichi realized he was surrounded by enemies. The red monkey prepared a giant punch toward the ground, but Saichi dodged with his incredible speed. The monkey was amazed, as this was the first time anyone had ever survived its first blow. No one had been strong enough until now, and the monkey fell in love with him. The battle continued, and Saichi attempted to retaliate, but the red monkey vanished towards him and punched him across the field. The force was enough to nearly kill him, and Saichi hung on to his last remaining HP before dying. But the red monkey didn't kill him. Instead, she introduced herself as Syria. Saichi wondered why she had the name of a pretty girl and attempted to slash towards her, but the monkey leaped into the sky, complimenting his skill and thrusting towards him in a last-ditch effort to end him. Realizing that he was about to die, Saichi decided to show the monkey his overpowered abilities and used his magical powers for the first time. However, the water fell on top of him, and the gorilla began launching a barrage of attacks to end Saichi. The flurry of punches nearly knocked him out, but he remembered everyone at school bullying him and calling him a pig. In his last moments of desperation, he realized that he must think of an ability that would end this fight. As the last punch was ready to end him, he raised his armpits and released his disgusting odor. The monkey's punch stopped in its tracks, and Syria told him that she would take him and marry him. However, this was nothing like the future he remembered having, and he wondered how things had taken such a turn. Syria brought him to her house and told him to eat up. But Saichi continued trying to tell her that he was a human and that they couldn't get married because they were completely different species. However, the food was good enough to make him forget everything he had just said, and he noticed that Syria was able to sew his clothes back up like a good wife. He tried to tell her that she would be a great wife if she married a gorilla, but she told him that he should just marry her. After weeks of being trapped with Syria, Saichi wondered how he could manage to escape her. He realized there were places he could flee to, But his scheming was interrupted by Syria, who told him he was too ugly to date a human girl, so he might as well date a monkey because he looked like one. The Great Escape plan would finally go into effect now that she was distracted. However, a giant spider was ready to kill him. Syria realized he was in danger and punched the spider into the sky. She asked him if he was okay, and he realized that she truly cared about him. This entire time, she had been so worried about him, yet he kept rejecting her just because they were different species. Meanwhile, a skeleton sat below them. Remembering how he had lost faith in humanity and cursed this entire world, he wished for someone to save him from this darkness. Saichi continued spending his days with Syria, thinking that it wasn't so bad after all. However, she revealed to him that she had been searching for the fruits of evolution to give to her future husband. He tried to deny knowing anything about it, but Syria told him that they allowed a person to ascend to the peak of their race as long as they didn't eat 11 of them, because then they would die. She warned him that she would kill whoever stole them from her, but Saichi fell to his knees and begged her not to kill him. This only motivated Syria to want to marry him more, but after he screamed that he didn't want that, she asked him if he hated her. He told her that he didn't hate her, but Syria didn't care about the rest and was ready to marry him now. After she left, Saichi took his only opportunity to escape and ran into the forests. Meanwhile, on the other side of the planet, the god of the world had greeted all the high school students and told them that they were the only ones capable of defeating the demon lord of this world. But weeks passed with just training, and their commander forced them to continue training before they left and died in the wilderness. Saichi continued running away for his freedom, but Syria finally caught up to him, chasing him like Flash while screaming at him not to go that way. Saichi vowed he would never be her prisoner again and used his instant movement to disappear from her sight at super speed. They continued running until Saichi finally approached the entrance to a cave filled with red air. His only course of action was to enter after hearing Syria scream. After exploring the cave for a while, he saw a skeleton sitting on a throne. The skeleton welcomed him, telling him that he must be rather strong for making it this far. When Saichi appraised the skeleton, he saw that it was only a level 1 Dark Lord. He wondered how it could be so weak, but the Dark Lord told him to check again, because it had deceived him. Saichi saw its level as 1500, and knew he was about to meet his doom. The Dark Lord vanished in an instant behind him, ready to kill him with a slash of its sword. In the last moment, however, Syria stepped in between them, getting stabbed to save Saichi's life. Saichi held on to Syria, and she told him that she was glad she was able to make it in time to save him. He screamed her name, telling her that he would get her a recovery potion, but she told him that she was glad he finally called her by her name because she was already dead. She explained that she had only been able to keep talking because of her special ability, but it wouldn't last long. He wondered why someone like her would love him, especially when he had constantly called her awful things and hadn't even seen her as the same species. But for Syria, Saichi was the only person who ever interacted with her normally, so she enjoyed having someone finally treat her like a normal person. She asked him for a final request, that he continue smiling for her. The Dark Lord was infuriated by their ridiculous love, and Saichi summoned his sword. Telling it that it knew nothing of love, he vanished behind the Dark Lord, summoning his bone sword and slashing against it. Saichi screamed that Syria was a kind girl, someone he would never have imagined. Memories of their time together flashed in his head, and he screamed that he loved Syria. She heard his words, and a golden glow began to wrap around her. He cast his magical ability, sending streams of water toward the Dark Lord, but they were all swallowed by its magical void. The Dark Lord commanded him to accept his death, but Saichi told him that he hadn't responded to Syria's feelings yet and hadn't gone through his last evolution. He vanished toward the Dark Lord and pierced it with his sword. The Dark Lord accepted his defeat, telling Saichi that he was grateful for finally helping him escape from his prison. Before Saichi's eyes, he saw the Dark Lord reuniting with his loved one, and they disappeared together. Saichi ran toward Syria, who told him that she really wanted to be his wife. They kissed each other, and she thanked him as her tears fell. She glowed brighter, about to disappear, but then he saw the prettiest girl laying there. She ran toward him and hugged him, asking if he recognized her. She was Syria, and Saichi realized that this entire time he had been with the most beautiful goddess in the world. They read the tragic story of the Dark Lord together, but Saichi told her that at least they were able to reunite him with his loved one after working together. They opened the treasure chest, and he gave Syria an outfit to cover herself. The godlike announcer continued giving him power-ups, and Syria asked him what he was receiving. He told her that it was a gift from the heavens. Finally, the announcer provided him with a last bit of information. The great amount of experience he had received would now finally allow him to evolve. After his evolution, his eyes and voice changed, and he became taller. He tried to show off. Syria promised that she would be with him wherever he traveled, but a mysterious animal interrupted them. It rewarded them for defeating the Dark Lord by giving them a travel set as if this were some MMORPG, along with new outfits. They were teleported away and arrived in a world filled with grass. Together, they set off to start their new adventure, but before they could reach the town, they encountered a random slime. Saichi ended it with a single blow, finally leveling up. A light flashed from his eyes, and his helmet transformed into a black robe. A note fell from inside the helmet, congratulating him on finally leveling up and telling him that this helmet had evolved with him, covering how monstrously strong he was compared to everyone else. But before leaving, the announcer left him with a final surprise and blew the letter up. They finally arrived at the town, and Saichi asked a local man about the Adventurers Guild. However, the man warned him that he should avoid going to the guild at all costs because of how terrible it would be. The man welcomed them to the capital, but they decided to completely ignore his advice and head to the guild anyway. As they approached, Saichi thought, "This must be the guild," and opened the door. Inside, he saw that the guild was filled with nutcases going crazy. Syria asked to see what was inside, and Saichi was about to run away with her when the guild master appeared, showing off his muscles and welcoming them to register with the guild. The guild master informed a woman named Mrs. Plot that they had a new member, and she introduced herself as the receptionist heiress. Syria encouraged Saichi to register with the guild. They joined the guild, but a group of 3 bandits came inside and began picking on Saichi. They held him, telling him they wanted him to come with them for a bit. The men escorted him out with their bats and brought him to a muscular man. They forced him to take off his cloak, and they all thought he was attractive. Confused by their intentions, Saichi used his full speed to run away from them. The guild master was impressed that Saichi was able to return after all that, as most newcomers didn't survive. He informed them of their first quest to gather money and introduced them to the superior who would be accompanying them, Artoria. Saichi looked at Artoria and appreciated her overpowered laser blasters. Artoria yelled at them, declaring that she would never adventure with them, but the guild master insisted that since Saichi had survived the weird bandits, he could definitely survive her calamity. Reluctantly, she agreed to help them and introduced herself as Artoria the Calamity. They set off to start their first quest, heading to an orphanage. As they walked, Saichi noticed that Artoria was walking far ahead of everyone. Suddenly, a boy ran by and tripped, and while Artoria was trying to treat him, logs fell from behind her. Saichi rushed to see if they were okay, but noticed that Artoria had already known something bad was going to happen. She was disappointed in herself. They had to start their next quest, but as Saichi walked toward the ruins, everything collapsed on top of him. Artoria knelt in despair, thinking it was all her fault because she had always had the name of Calamity attached to her. She even blamed herself for her parents' deaths and had spent her entire life in loneliness, never depending on anyone because of the curse that followed her. Just then, Saichi's arm emerged from the rubble, and Artoria yelled at him for doing things on his own without directions, as it could get all of them killed. She ran away after screaming at him. But he believed that she was actually a really kind person deep down. The school was still undergoing training, but after 5 months, none of the students had become strong yet. Later on, the receptionist asked if they had a place to stay, but since they were nomadic travelers, they of course did not. Artoria invited them to stay with her, and they gladly accepted her kind offer. Their travels continued together, and Artoria asked Saichi to gather more herbs before heading home. After searching for hours, he overheard a group of 3 goblins discussing their plan to catch humans. Saichi decided to interrupt them, but they threatened to kill him for overhearing their secret plan to overtake the human realm. They called forth their giant troll, which used its full might to strike down Saichi. However, Saichi had a hidden skill, the ability to take an opponent's blow and transfer the damage back onto them. He attempted to ask the goblins about the herbs, but they all turned around and ran away from him. Their superior, powerful goblin asked them why they disobeyed her and entered the human realm. They explained that they wanted to be of more help to her. They had set up teleportation spells across the entire realm to the Black Dragon God's entrance. Their master was pleased by their evil deeds, but decided to punish them for disobeying her with 500 lashes. The day of the final guild test arrived for Saichi and Syria, with Artoria set to proctor them. The day began as usual, and Saichi and Syria attempted to defeat a slime to complete their mission. However, the slime teleported away before they could hit it. Artoria noticed hidden teleportation spells scattered across the land and told them to walk back to the guild, but she accidentally activated a teleportation spell. Saichi and Syria held on to her, and they all entered the portal together. They wondered where they had been teleported to, and Artoria instructed them to stick close to her, handing them a stone that would allow them to find her if they got separated. But before they knew it, Artoria stepped on a stone that caused a wall to rise from the floor, separating them. Saichi panicked and tried to punch the wall with all his might, but only hurt his hand instead. Meanwhile, Artoria desperately battled alone, bleeding as she fought a mummy, but she built up the courage to slash it down. Saichi and Syria began looking for a way to find Artoria. Saichi found a secret chest but decided to ignore it. The chest began talking, asking them to open it, and limbs released from inside, jumping toward them. Saichi destroyed it with a single hit. They looked inside the chest for loot, and Saichi found a misfortune ring that had the ability to multiply the wearer's luck by -2. A light shone from Syria's stone, and she wondered why it was glowing red. Meanwhile, Artoria entered the boss's lair, where the dragon welcomed her to her death. As she prepared to fight, Saichi and Syria realized that the stone she had given them only lit up red if she was in danger. They tried to use the guide stone to locate her. Saichi punched the wall again, and Syria asked him what to do, but he continued to punch at the wall. Meanwhile, Artoria was being overwhelmed by the dragon, but she maintained her strong resolve, vowing not to give up until she was reunited with her friends. A red aura began to flow around her, and she screamed that she would show the dragon how she earned the title of Calamity. Her energy radiated, and her form changed as she launched herself toward the dragon, but he struck her down. With all her energy, she continued to resist, but the dragon cast 3 blades that sent her flying back toward the wall. Artoria was frustrated by her weakness, but continued using her ability to launch herself toward the dragon. However, he stabbed her in the chest, casting her aside and saying that he was impressed by her tenacity. In her final moments, Artoria thought about Saichi and Syria, the only 2 who had ever brought her a smile since she had been cursed with misfortune. The dragon unleashed his fire breath, and she apologized for having them die because of her. Just then, she heard a familiar voice telling her that they were there to save her. The dragon prepared another blow, but Saichi teleported away with his instant movement. He attempted to get closer to the dragon, but its energy attacks warded him off. After appraising the dragon, Saichi saw that its level was over 5,000 and realized he was in serious trouble. The dragon whipped its tail, and Saichi narrowly teleported away. However, the dragon used telekinesis to force Saichi to stay in place and blasted him toward the wall with its tailwind. Saichi coughed up blood and fell, wondering why none of his skills were activating. The dragon announced that he would end the fight by unleashing his most powerful spell. Syria yelled at Saichi to use the water spell he had used when fighting her. He summoned his legendary dagger and brought forth a giant waterfall to crash down on the dragon. The dragon was angered by this and unleashed his fire breath towards Saichi, who flashed away, activating his ultimate skill, Gale. But the dragon forced him to stay locked in place once again. Saichi focused his mind to move, and the godlike announcer granted him the skill of intimidation resistance, allowing him to move freely. He unlocked the ultimate skill, won with a sword, and rushed toward the dragon. The announcer spammed the leveling up button, and Syria ran to hug him. Artoria was saved by Syria's healing herbs, but they still hadn't found a way to escape. Saichi rushed to open the treasure chest to find a way home, but saw the dragon's gem with its overpowered statistics and decided to eat it to increase his magical strength. And also he found a black coat to wear. The rewards bunny appeared from a letter again and teleported them out of the dungeon. Artoria woke up and screamed at Saichi to let her down, but then she apologized for getting them caught up in her misfortune. She showed him her luck points, and he saw that they were at -2 million. But it didn't end there. Artoria's misfortune had been with her since she was young and had always affected the people around her. She apologized for bringing them all this misfortune, But Saichi reassured her that she had never brought them any misfortune, and Syria agreed. A few days passed, and Saichi looked for Artoria, who had disappeared since then. He found her sitting in the rubble created during their test and told her that everyone loved her and missed her. Saichi wondered how he could make her feel better, so he hugged her and promised to stay by her side for as long as it took until she could truly smile from her heart, causing Artoria to cry. Later on, Artoria thanked him for his kindness, and Saichi wondered if there was any way to free her from her misfortune. His memories reminded him of her telling him that her luck had always been negative, and he realized he had found his answer. Saichi asked for Artoria's hand and placed a ring on her finger. He told her that this ring was the ring of happiness, which would negate her curse and double her luck, changing it from negative 2 million to positive 4 million. Artoria would no longer be known as the Calamity, and he reassured her that he would always fully support her. Thanks for joining us on this adventure. If you enjoyed the story, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Your support helps us create more exciting stories.